G'day, Ethan. One of the things I was talking to you about a little while ago was the fact that the word architect is registered. I'm not an architect. I was registered as an architect and I could call myself an architect. And when I worked in England, I had to go through my registration procedure all over again before I could use the word architect in the UK. So there is a law. It used to be 1963 law, but it's actually changed.
Registered Architects Act 2005.
2005. I see it now. Yeah. So what it did was it made that the use of the word architect, registered architect, is fixed by law. We can't use that word unless we're registered as an architect. But it doesn't stop somebody doing the job of an architect. So this protects the use of the word, but not the action. And so you see a lot of designers using phrases like Joe Blogg's architecture or architectural design. And so people do use these terminologies to get around it. And the Act also gives, what does it say? It says, no person other than a registered architect may use in connection with his or her business, trade or employment, calling or profession, the title registered architect or any words, initials or abbreviations of that title that are intended to cause or may reasonably cause any person to believe that the person using those words, initials or abbreviation is a registered architect. So we have to be clear when we're talking to our clients, if we're not a registered architect, that we are not registered.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I've seen lots of phrases. What was my favorite one? Urban design consultant, I think, was my favorite one.
Design consultant.
I have no idea what they did. But the Act sets out how to become registered, and there's a registration board, which is the Registered Architects Board in New Zealand, which controls registration, and in England it's the RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects. So, but there's actually more than one way to become a registered architect. To become a registered architect in New Zealand, you have to present yourself to the board and be tested to make sure that you're of a suitably good character. I think this good character was in there when I did it. But also you need to produce a body of work that proves that you're capable of being an architect, a registered architect. And that doesn't mean that you have to go to architectural school. There are several people who have become architects through producing a large body of work that proves that they're capable of doing it. One of the things I got tested on when I did it was not design, not documentation, but actually running a project on site. So when I got registered in New Zealand, they sort of, it was all verbal. There was nothing other than verbal. So it was about 90 minutes long, and it was the client comes in, how do you deal with it? What do you do next? Then how do we take care of this? So there was no production of drawings like the American system's got. In America, I think some of the tests for registered architects is to attend a 3-day test, and you actually have to design you have to do a set of drawings to code in that time. I don't think I could do that. But anyway, with my one, where they talked through the stages of design, they didn't talk about detailing. They talked about contracts. They talked about running contracts, what to do on site, what do I do when I don't know. And I was very nervous going into it, but actually it wasn't that difficult for me to pass. I thought they were very kind. The English one was a lot harder. The English one required a 10,000 word case study, a 5,000 written evaluation of my career. I had to go to night school to make sure I knew English law. I had to do a logbook, I had to produce a logbook showing so many hours of work and where that work was. I had to be signed off by my employer. And then there was a 3-hour written exam. And then there was the oral exam after that, about 2 weeks after the written exam, the oral exam, where they've already marked my case study, they've already marked my exam, they've already read everything I've written. And, they're as sweet as anything.
Yeah. It's It's quite interesting. Yeah.
When I
By the way,
when I say that they,
yeah,
sorry,
continue.
Ethan, when I say they were as sweet as anything, it wasn't quite like that. I mean, they were lovely and polite, but the questions were like a mind trap. They were the first question they asked me was, "How did you find the exam?"
Hmm.
Oh,
That's
what do you say?
good.
I aced it. Yeah, well, we marked it, and you got this wrong. So I said, because I thought I did pretty well, but I don't want to say that. So I said, I think I did okay in some areas, and I think I may have struggled in other areas. Oh, really?
Hmm.
Where do you think you struggled? Oh, well, maybe that question about the nominated subcontractor. I thought that was a little tricky, and I did this and I did that, and oh yeah, how did you find that? And they went through the questions, and at the end of the answer, at the end of discussing that, one of them said to me, "I think you misunderstood the question," and the other one said, "No, that's exactly what I would have said." So it was, but to me, it was very interesting what they were looking for in those questions. It wasn't
Hmm.
really, they weren't really looking for whether you knew everything. They were looking to
Hmm.
see how much you knew, but most importantly, did you know what you don't know?
Yeah, right. It's quite interesting. Yeah. All right.
Hmm. Well, it's one of the most important things that you need to know is
Hmm.
what you don't know,
Right.
and you can't
That's
just make it
quite
up.
interesting way of talk.
Hmm.
Assessing. Hmm.
So I was listening to a book today, and it said Confucius says that the wise man knows what he knows and knows what he doesn't know.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's uh, quite a good way of putting it. Well, oh, by the way, I just want to talk to you about using of architects because for the building industry, you just mentioned that people try to avoid using of architect, but in New Zealand there are other peoples in other industry is using architects as well. Maybe you notice that solution architect, which is
Yeah,
very
software
popular
architect,
as a software
designing
architects,
the desi- yeah,
cloud,
designing the
cloud
inside of
architect.
the, designing the inside of a computer.
Mhm.
You're a hardware
Cloud
architect,
architects. Yeah.
cloud
So
architect. So
actually, the code itself is restricting the everything, the total usage of architects. So whether the actual, if the code they enforce, they are unable to use it. To give you an example, because my friend he is working in Canada, and in Canada, engineer, not just architect, according to him, engineer is also a protected profession. And for example, like Microsoft, MCEA, Microsoft engineer or something like that exam. So even though Microsoft is from US and Canada, even the neighboring country, Microsoft Cloud Architect or something like that. Uh, when they do the exam, the Microsoft has no chance to use engineered in Canada for the certification process. So it is quite interesting.
so yeah, but just to be clear, in New Zealand,
Mhm.
it's using the phrase registered architect.
Not
So
yet, because when I'm looking at it, because when I look at New Zealand Registered Architect Board, it's saying that user title, under Section 7 of the Act, New Zealand, no one except New Zealand Registered Architect can use title registered architect or describe him or himself as architect when providing building services. Oh, okay, that is
mhm.
another tricky because these guys are doing restricted by the building services because that cloud
Yeah,
is
so the
maybe that's okay.
cloud
No, I
architect
should be
is
wrong.
you're not a. So what about the
Not the building
architect of
service.
his own misfortune? Have you heard that phrase?
No. Okay, can you please explain to me?
So he's the architect of his own misfortune. In other words,
Mhm.
he designed his own fault. He's.
Mhm.
I think the French have an expression: "hoisted by their own petard," or
Mhm.
caught in their own trap. But I have heard someone talk, or Michael Cullen is the architect of the KiwiSaver scheme.
Hmm. Oh,
But that's
okay.
not capital A architect, that's lowercase a. So in other words,
Hmm.
he's the designer of the Kiwi Saver scheme.
Saber
He
scheme. Yeah,
fostered it through and did all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
And
a lot of people are very careful not to use the word architect or registered architect in the building industry unless they are in fact registered.
yeah,
Most people
yeah.
know this and avoid it.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's the word or the words, and it's not the action. So it says here that people, a person who designs buildings for living in New Zealand. So a person who designs buildings for a living in New Zealand but is not registered as an architect cannot describe him or herself as an architect. For these people, titles like architectural designer, building designer, draftsman, and so on are lawful, but not architect, which is fine.
Yeah,
People call themselves architectural designer,
yep,
and they use the word, you know, Richard so and so architecture, or Richard so and so architectural designer. Those things are fine.
yeah, yeah. And and also we have organizations, right? Was that DTNZ?
Uh,
Uh,
the Architectural
was that
Designers of New
the
Zealand,
designs of
ADNZ.
ADNZ? Sorry, ADNZ. Yeah, Architectural
Hmm.
Design of New Zealand. So there's organizations. Even they have organizations. Yeah, and by the way, just fun facts because I am a foreign architect, right? So I've been writing in emails, putting signatures saying that Ethan, because that part of the wall say licensed architects in brackets from Yamaha. So which
Yeah,
is
you can,
actually you can do that.
and under the law, you're allowed to say that. It says here
Say that.
somewhere.
Yeah, it says that foreign
Um,
architects can do it as long as say
you are
so
registered.
show the where my practice country is. So which
Hmm.
we can people can do that. So well, but anyway, be care. We have to be very careful with that because you it is always about the ethic of your professions because these are professional organizations and you shouldn't misrepresent your area of practice because you are registered and I'm registered and I'm able to endorse drawings in other part of the world but not in New Zealand. However, it doesn't limit it for me to do the design walks. And a few weeks ago, we also talked about Moshe Sapdi, other famous architects. They've been walking around doing commissioning all the projects all over the world. It's very hard for them to become an architect for every part of the world, but it doesn't limit them to become design some buildings in Singapore or buildings in Paris or building in New Zealand, because they are maybe they are registered architect in their own country. However, they work as architectural designers and their drawing will be vetted by the local architects and make sure all the documentation process has been proper and have it accepted by the authority and built at the locations of the land. So that's how is it. Hopefully, the peoples may got some ideas of it and using of registered architects
Yeah,
and being an architectural designer.
I think I think to pick up on that point you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the ethics, and I guess I'd use the phrase misrepresentation. You've got to
Yes,
be very clear to
misrepresentation.
represent yourself correctly. And the other
Yes.
thing is, one of the big jobs of an architect is, or a designer, is to ensure that they manage the client's expectations.
Yeah.
That we have a phrase that we used to use in England, which was they want to get a Rolls Royce for the price of a Mini.
Mm-hmm.
They want a big job, they want a big house, but actually they want to pay a small amount. And
Mm-hmm.
and if you represent yourself as an architect, and if you misrepresent yourself, the client's expectation is that you are who you say you are, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
not, they'll be disappointed, and it's going to be bad for you.
And also, they may sue you because you're misrepresent. It could be a police case.
Well, I was just being
Well, they
polite
cheat.
when I got to that bit.
Yeah, you're deceiving anyway, right?
You are deceiving people. So I'm clear
Yeah.
when I talk to people that I was trained as an architect. I'm no longer registered.
And also, it's a shame that because I'm quite curious. A few weeks ago, I was looking at a registered doctor. To become a doctor, so you need to register it. And I read about UK registered doctors, and because, for example, in New Zealand, you can be a retired registered architect. There is a grade for that. But for the doctors, they don't want doctors to retire in the UK, and they want
They want to
doctors to
hang on to
come,
them.
to come and contribute, work them. So, I feel like in New Zealand they do it like, oh, if you don't want to do any design, just go out. It's also a way. Sometimes you want to, at one point you want to do a design and those then that's quite a messy thing.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not an exciting topic tonight.
Yeah, but maybe I'm not so sure. Some people may love it. We also talk about love it and hate it. Some people, yeah. Oh, all right. Uh, it's good to talk to you this week, and see you next week. Oh, what about next week topic? And who? We are interviewing somebody, right? Can you introduce about him?
We're going to interview Sol Atkinson as a colleague. He sometimes helps teach our students. He's a specialist in Homestar. He's got two of my students. He's had two of my students now for, goodness, must be 3 or 4 years now. So I hope he's happy with them. So it'll be interesting to find out what he's got to say about the way we've trained our students, and what he's got to say. I'm pretty sure he's got some thoughts about whether the employer should pay for the CPD, how to grow those students from where they are into designers. I'd love to hear him talk about how he's done that kind of work. So I'm really looking forward to it. Should be really exciting.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully I can join this time because I'm missing a few interviews. And
Yeah, it'd be good for you
see
to
you
be
next
there.
week. Yep.
See you next week, Ethan.
Bye.
Bye.